Well, this is another one of these summary lectures that collects the material on a number of languages, and it's more there as a reference rather than as a nice story that I can tell. And it relates to the Indian, the Ethiopian, and the Egyptian. Well, here we've seen all of these alphabets before, but now we have them all on one page. And it's useful because we see that in this version, the so-called other alphabet of the Abyssinian Indians, in their passages from across the seas, we have 3 letters, A, Le, Fu. In this version, A, Le, Fu becomes 1 letter, A, Le, Fu. And in this version, that shape becomes 1 single letter, A. Well, here I then take Indian 1 and Indian 2 and show you the parallels between them so that you can study that on your own. And the same as we go along for the rest of the letters. And instead of QRST, it's QRSC. But it's still the Karashat. Now I go back to the Ethiopian, the alphabet Ethiopic, and then link that with Ethiopian and Amharic, and show you the parallels in each case. Till there, and then these, and so now we're back at these 3 crucial ones. So we have one where we have 45 letters like this. Then that's reduced to 1 letter at a time. And this one writes them out as A, B, G, D, but has numbers which relate to the old Ethiopian order. In this figure, I give you the Hebrew letter and then show you the letter in the Indian alphabet. And you can see that these combinations of letters in Indian help you to get to, such as Kafu gives you Kaf. Yodu gives you Yod, Tethu gives you Teth. And so although the normal story is that the Hebrew was given by God and there at the absolute beginning of creation, or in some versions 200 years before creation, we now see that these Hebrew letters are combinations from another culture, which leads to the suggestion, especially since the Ethiopian alphabets have Hebrew letters alongside them, that somehow in the creation of these early alphabets, Hebrew was a kind of spin-off product rather than the origin from which everything came. And here you see some other ones. Lame Dudo becomes Lamed. Me Mun becomes Mem. Nun is Nun. Sachmunte tu Me Mun becomes Samek. Ayin, A becomes Ayin. Pse becomes Pe. And Sade becomes Tzadi. Kofu becomes Kof, and so on. And I now go through that Outre alphabet and show you parallels in other alphabets, in Indian, Ethiopian, and Ethiopic. And as I say, this is not for great pleasure. It's more a reference section. And sometimes the letters are complete copies, and other times there's quite a bit of variation. So now this is autre, so the alphabet Indicum unum et alterum, so there's two versions. Here is another version of, and many of those letters return in Mercurius thought or in Mercurianum. And now I compare Indicum of Palatino, Indicum of de Brie, Mercurius thought in Palatinum, and you can see some of them are complete copies and others considerable variation. Yes, and this letter we saw the other day in Tibetan. So what probably happened is that there were people who were Indians who knew Sanskrit and knew a number of these Asian languages, but because they were shipping people, they created their own variant that treated these things with a certain amount of légèreté de main, lightness of hand, and came up with a completely different alphabet, which then got accepted by the Egyptians and therefore went on. So here again, you can see parallels in each case. And again, parallels in these. Oh, and here, just for fun, I show you the Brahmi. So they're not copies, but you can see parallels. And whoops, now we're going a bit too quickly. So here we have QRSHT. So this is the Karashat part of the Abjad. And then here again, QRST, QRST, QRST in a series of languages. And then some versions, instead of saying PQRT, say PTSQRSET, and then I show you a variety of those. And yet another set of those, and then I compare them. Or here, Egyptian 1 and Kuseum, or the first Egyptian alphabet, Egyptian 2 and another Egyptian alphabet, that becomes Egypticum. Egyptian 3 becomes Isaicum, which is the language, the alphabet of Isis, the goddess that is, and not the terrorists. Then Egyptian, oh sorry, we had that. And then here are other versions. Egyptian 4 is Mercurianum, which I show you here in an other version. Or it's called Mercuriano here, but it's the same. And Egyptian 5 is Hieroglyphicum. Now this is interesting because the normal story is we start with hieroglyphs and then we make simplifications of the hieroglyphs to create the letters. And we saw at the very beginning Mimshim, which is a combination of hieroglyphs and semi-letters as one of the first Egyptian alphabets. But if Fry is right in his chronology here, there were at least 4 Egyptian alphabets that came from abroad before the hieroglyphs got started around 4000 BC. So this is, now that would require further study to be proven, but it raises some very interesting questions about the normal story that we have about these letters. Well, then I have a section. Here are 2 alphabets which use now a 6x6 grid or a 5x5 grid, show you the modern letters, and then show you the hieroglyphs that are involved. And then I simply start at the letter A and show you other letters A in related alphabets. So that's A, B, C, D. And so the D is interesting because that's your hasta in Sanskrit, and you can see quite a variation in the, and it links with Daleth and copper, where there's also a hand here in the alphabet of the Magi. So the Magi, although they came from the East, they must also have known the Egyptian hieroglyphs to make this kind of connection. And so this is, as it were, a first step in the direction of this dictionary of letters, or one approach to something that it would need a lot more work. So there is a snake, and then these various versions, and that links with U, V, and W, with vow and congelation. Or here, and silver. And sorry, just go back one second. Notice this one is again connected to the hieroglyph. So they must have known these hieroglyphs to create that alphabet. And this is that H that is almost like a Ida and Pingala without the Shishumna. And then various versions of that. And then I, which is this kind of snake, and the various versions of that linked with distillation. And there you see the snake again, now as a yod, the lion, here again as a symbol in the alphabet of the Magi, and then the various letters connected with that L. And M, the letters connected with that, and again the owl, and now linked with water and mem. N, separation, nun, and various nuns. O, a noose, which you see here in a different version, but it's connected. Ayin, and then mainly O's. P, now the image is reversed, but it's clearly connected. R, again they have copied the hieroglyphs systematically, well, almost systematically. Some of them have a slight variant. T, U, X, Y, two feathers, Z, there it's the same again, and TH. And then at the end of the alphabet there are these double sounds, KH, SH, CH, and MS, linking with these. So NH, PH, house, man, woman, and God. And then at the end of this section, I just show you some of the, well, we have the hieroglyphs, and then we start to have written versions of so-called Meroitic, that are kind of cursive versions of writing these symbols. So here are the phonograms of Kemet, the monoliteral sign list. So here is the formal way of writing those symbols. Here's the cursive way, and this is the popular way. So it's like writing capital letters at school, writing cursive, and then writing informally, the way the doctors do when they're doing prescriptions. So here are the letter, again, the formal symbols, and these then are the Meroitic ones, a kind of cursive, and here we compare Egyptian, Semitic, and then so Greek, and then the Latin. And here another version where we have a transitional and then the phonetic version. Here yet another version of Meroitic, another version of Meroitic, and then a table that shows you ancient Egyptian, Proto-Sinaitic, and Phoenician, and tries to show how all of that connects. Well, now this is very beautiful and quite compelling, but as we have seen in our story, it completely leaves out the fact that there are all these other ones coming in from the south via the Sudan and Ethiopia and to the north of Egypt. So this is the Europeans looking down to what's happening in Egypt as if Egypt was where it all began and ended, and forgetting that whole sea part of the story, let alone the overland part of the story via Iran, Iraq, and the Ugaritic up in northern Syria and so on. But it's enough to again give you an overview of how these complex languages interact, and that the picture that we have in the West and that we have in our textbooks is just a small part of a much more complicated story. Thank you.